Thank you, Margot. Not everyone can sing the lights out, and so, and sincerely, you don't know, most of you don't know, if there's any type of problem like that and you're in front of people when stuff doesn't go as it's planned, to be able to keep going is huge. And so, Marco, thank you. Thank you so much. Caroline and I met, and I've always been very candid about how it was that we met, but it was back in 2004, and at that point it was still kind of a new thing, though, for people to meet on the internet. And we actually met through Match.com. And repeatedly she's told me she should have used a different website, but anyway, we'd first had our contact through email, and then after emailing back and forth a little bit, we had some phone calls with each other, and then finally we had our first date. It was on February the 13th of 2004, and I was intentional about this in terms of planning that evening, because all I wanted to do was just go to dinner. Or at least that's all we were going to plan, because if things kind of go south, I don't want to be stuck for hours on end. And so if we just say we're going to go to dinner, if it goes poorly, then we can say, okay, it was nice meeting you, and bye. But if it goes better, then you can schedule something else or maybe figure out to do something later. So anyway, we go and we have dinner, and like the exchanges that we've had prior to meeting, they've all been very good. Everything has been very promising, and so we go to this Mexican restaurant, we have dinner, and dinner goes really well. And to make a long story short, after that we went to, there was this crazy grocery store on the other side of town that we went to because they had funky stuff in their meat section. And so we went through there and gawked at that. It's a long story. We went to a Walmart on the other side of town to buy kitty litter, and then we wound up at a Waffle House just to have coffee, because we're just trying to come up with ways to keep talking and enjoying each other's company. And so in my mind, I'm thinking at this point, this night has gone really well, and I am really interested in her. But I don't know exactly what she thinks. And so in hindsight, I guess it was a little gutsy to even phrase it this way, but I just said, as we're sitting there in the Waffle House, I said, so how do you think it's going? And so her response was, I think at this point you're just going to have to impress me. So I did. And act like I was going to unbutton my shirt, and it was all funny. And but it was at that point that I think both of us very much realized that we were mutually interested in each other. And at the end of the day, that really matters in relationships, doesn't it? I mean, because it was one thing that I was interested in her, but the possibility of an ongoing relationship didn't just rest on my feelings and my interest, because, and you know this, relationships are two-way streets. Relationships, at least healthy relationships, involve a mutual experience of relationship. It's not just how I feel and what I do, it's what you feel and how it is that you operate. I want you to think with me about that concept as part of the process of finishing a series today that we started back in the beginning of June that I've been calling Prone to Wander. And what we've been thinking about is this. You can have individuals that begin a relationship with Jesus. They realize that God, through Christ, has done great things for them, that He's made forgiveness possible, that He's made a relationship with God this side of heaven and eternity in heaven later with Him possible, and they respond to that by faith. And so they begin a relationship with Jesus, and then they also begin a relationship with other followers of Jesus. They become part of, and they get connected with a church, with a church family. Now, as they experience that, and this has happened countless times. It's happened at Gate City. It's happened at every Bible-believing church in the country and around the world, where you have individuals who do that, but then somehow, over time, bit by bit, they just kind of check out. They just kind of step away. It doesn't happen overnight, but it does happen. It happens gradually. It happens intentionally, where they're just kind of stepping further and further and further away, so that ultimately they've wandered, and they are completely disconnected from the church. And we've been thinking about that because hopefully you realize God doesn't want it to be that way. God wants me, He wants you as His follower to be meaningfully connected, not just to Him, but also to the other parts of His family, to other believers. And so being prone to wander is not a good thing. So we've been thinking about it and trying to make sure that we figure out how that happens so that we can stop it, make sure it doesn't happen to me, make sure that it doesn't happen to you. And one of the ways that we can ensure that it doesn't happen, that you are not someone who is prone to wander, is when you understand fully that your relationship with a church family is a mutual relationship. But specifically today, we want to think about this question: how is it that my relationship, my connection with a church is a mutual relationship? Look with me in your Bibles today to 1 Corinthians chapter 12. 1 Corinthians chapter 12. We're going to start reading with verse 12. And if you've got a copy of God's Word, hopefully you can follow along there, or you can follow along on the screen, where Paul says in verse 12 of 1 Corinthians chapter 12, "For just as the body is one and has many parts, and all of the parts of that body, though many, are one body, so also is Christ. For we were all baptized by one Spirit into one body, whether Jews or Greeks, whether slaves or free, and we were all given one Spirit to drink. Indeed, the body is not one part, but many. If the foot should say, 'Because I'm not a hand, I don't belong to the body,' it is not for that reason any less part of the body. And if the ear should say, 'Because I'm not an eye, I don't belong to the body,' it is not for that reason any less a part of the body. If the whole body were an eye, where would the hearing be? If the whole body were an ear, where would the sense of smell be? But as it is, God has arranged each one of the parts in the body just as He wanted. And if they were all the same part, where would the body be? As it is, there are many parts, but one body. The eye can't say to the hand, 'I don't need you,' or again, the head cannot say to the feet, 'I don't need you.' On the contrary, these parts of the body that are weaker, they are indispensable." And he continues the thought even all the way through the end of the 12th chapter, but we're going to just stop there, because in these verses, I believe God gives us the answer to why it is, or how it is, that my relationship or your relationship with the church is a mutual one. And based on what we see here, the first reason is this: my church family needs me because I am part of the body. It's a mutual relationship because my church family needs me, and I am part of the body. If there is one word that would effectively summarize the whole 12th chapter of 1 Corinthians, it is the word unity. And if you were to just thumb back to the beginning and just kind of look and see what he's talking about, at the beginning of the chapter, he's talking about how it is that God has uniquely gifted us, that each person that's a follower of Christ has been given special and unique spiritual gifts, gifts that they can use, gifts that God has given them that are intended to be used for the mutual encouragement of other believers. And even though there is diversity in these gifts, he's describing the fact that there is a common unifying theme, a common unifying experience, and that's our relationship with Jesus. And so though we are uniquely gifted, we have one relationship with the same Jesus. And so that becomes a common unifying bridge. And that thought continues in verse 12, where he's talking about unity, and he's giving it a metaphor here, and he's talking about or likening it to the experience of the body. And you realize that your body, you just have one of them. You may love it, you may not like it, but you got one body. But that one singular body is made up of stacks of, who knows how many individual parts make up this body of mine, the body that you have. And he says that spiritually, followers of Jesus are like that. And so all of those who are in relationship with Jesus, they comprise one body. That's me, that's you, that's all of us that have a relationship with Jesus. We are part of one body, but that one body of all of these followers is made up of individual, different parts. But these different parts, although they are unique and diverse, they are unified together. He says in verse 13, "We were all baptized by one Spirit into one body, whether Jews or Greeks, slaves or free, we were all given one Spirit to drink." And so what he's saying is this: it doesn't make any difference where you're from. It doesn't make any difference how old you are, how smart you are, what color you are, what it is that you know in terms of physics or what you don't know in terms of math. None of those things matter, that in spite of all the diversity that we experience as followers of Jesus, there is a singular way to experience unity, and that's our common relationship with Him. I'll be 47 in February, and in my lifetime, I don't know that I could say that I believe I have witnessed a country that is experiencing any more division than it is experiencing now. And it seems like we are at each other's throat, and we're operating in silos, and we are operating in a country that is made up of a whole lot of people that don't seem to get along very well, in many ways don't seem to like each other. And the problem in part is that as we see that, as we experience that, we are being inundated with all sorts of voices. And it's the voices of academia, it's the voices of media, it's the voices of Hollywood, it's the voices of culture at large, it's the voice of politicians that are saying, we need to do this, we need to do this, we need to do that to experience unity. And I don't mean to be a Debbie Downer, but here's the reality. The only way that there will ever be a unifying force between people from different places, of different races, of different languages, of different ages, of different stages, of different heights, of different weights, of all of those differences, there can only be bridges that are experienced when there is a true common denominator. And I'm telling you, the only real common denominator is a relationship with Jesus. And if you try to find unity elsewhere, I'm just telling you, you're going to beat your head against the wall. And so the good thing, the amazing thing, on this day that we celebrate our country's independence, and that for all of its successes and positives, there are still a whole ton of faults and warts that we are struggling with. We need to remember that everything outside of Jesus that we try to build unity on is going to be built on a house of cards. But he continues this thought talking about unity and about how it is that individually, you as an individual, you are part of this one body of Jesus. And as he's using this metaphor, we could push it to illogical limits to the point where you'd say, well, that doesn't quite hold up. So don't get lost in those details. But what I want you to realize is this. When you or I or anyone becomes a follower of Jesus, when you begin a relationship with him, you become part of something that is bigger than yourself. You are not an island unto yourself. You become part of something that is much bigger. You become what he describes as part of the body of Christ. You become part of something that, were it not for the work of Jesus, simply would not exist. As you are part of and connected with that team, part of that body, part of that family, Paul describes that you are one of many parts that make up that body. Now, again, that's a concept that's pretty easy for us to get. I realize that my body is made up of a whole slew of parts, and all of them are awesome. And you are made of a ton of different parts as well. But as you realize that you are made up of all of these parts, and some of your parts have already been replaced. You've got even replacement parts now. You realize that there is still but one body. With that in mind, Paul gives this illustrative question. If I am a foot, as a foot, I don't get to write letters. I don't get to write letters if I'm a foot. I can scrunch my toes up, but I can't write a letter. If someone ever cuts you off in traffic, nobody's looking for a toe, are they? A lot of people are grossed out by feet, but nobody seems to be grossed out by hands. During this whole COVID experience, what we've been hearing about constantly is wash your hands, wash your hands. Nobody's talking about the feet. If I am a foot, it's easy for me to say, well, you know what? I just don't matter because I'm not a hand. Hands don't get to write letters. Hands don't get the priority feet don't get the priority that hands get. People are grossed out by feet, and people don't like toes and toenails, but that's me. That's what I am. I'm a foot. So therefore, somehow, I don't matter, and I'm not consequential. But thinking about this whole concept of the body, yes, the foot can't write a letter. The hand can, but it's going to take the feet to get it to the mailbox. He continues the same thought in verse 16, and he says, somehow, if your ear could say, because I'm not an eye, I don't belong to the body, you'd say, well, that's kind of silly. With my eyes, I can see what radio station that I'm tuned to, but were it not for my ears, I would have no idea what is actually being played or what it is that is actually being said. My ears do very different things than my eyes, but I want both, and I need both. My feet do very different things than my hands, but I want both, and I need both. And Paul continues the thought in verse 17, and he says that if every part of the body was the same, if every part was an ear or an eye, what would be missing? In verse 17, he says, if the whole body were an eye, where would the hearing be? So if we're all eyes, we couldn't hear anything. If the whole body were an ear, you couldn't smell anything. So it is important that we are different. It is important that we are unique. It's important that we don't do the same thing. But what this does, it tells me this. It tells you this. As a follower of Jesus, as a person, you absolutely are unique. It tells you that you are different. It tells me, beyond that I do, that you have a unique contribution. And collectively, it tells me that as a unique part with a unique contribution to the body, I do something that other parts don't. And consequently, that body needs me. Let me illustrate it this way. When I was a kid, my grandmother had a sister whose name was Helen. And my sister and I, we did not like to go see Helen for a variety of reasons. But Helen had made a whole lot of bad decisions in life, and that affected the circumstances that she was in and the circumstances where it was that we would go to visit her. And so she in particular, I think, had trouble with alcohol, and then I think she must have had diabetes or something, and just physically didn't take care of herself at all. And so she'd made a whole slew of bad financial decisions, and so she was in this apartment complex that was absolutely, I mean, it was a dump. And it was terrible, it was nasty, it was old, it was run down, everything. It smelled bad, and there was no air conditioning, and drafty. It was terrible. It was small. You'd go in there, it was kind of dark. And anytime you go to the bathroom, her gigantic underwear was always drying on the shower rack. I hated that. There were always, and it seemed like it was always during summer break we'd go to see her, and she had these, you know, those old long fly glue trap things. They were hanging everywhere. Trying to get in there to see Helen. I can't remember if she had all of her teeth, but I'm telling you, her hair was always greasy enough to change oil with, and she didn't take a whole lot of baths, but every time you'd get over there, she'd say, "Come over here and give me a smooch." Like giving Helen a smooch. Anyway, but I said she didn't take care of herself, and I believe that she had diabetes because this is what happened as well, that she wound up, I suppose because of not taking care and monitoring the blood sugar appropriately, she had all of her toes removed. In fact, she didn't have any, not only did she not have any toes, but it's like her foot was almost like amputated, like at mid-foot. And so you had these small little stumps that she had. And so you got to go get through the fly traps, past the gigantic underwear, the sweltering heat, the oppressive smell, the lack of teeth, the greasy hair to plant a smooch on Helen. But anyway, so that's why I didn't like going to see Helen. But I want you to understand this. Because of those choices that she made, she wound up losing most of her feet, and because of that, she was confined to a wheelchair. And so if she was to move about place to place in there, it's because she was going to ooch around with that wheelchair. Now, she could function. She could move about. She could operate. But what? She was handicapped. What otherwise she should have been able to do, what she fully wanted to do, what originally she was intended to do, she couldn't. Why? Because she didn't have all the parts. Yes, there was still function, but that function was handicapped because part of her simply was not there. That's true with my physical body, it's true with your physical body, but it's also true of this spiritual body. That every part is important. And if you are part of the body and you are prone to wander and you get disconnected, if you check out, what I'm saying is that it's not that the church can't function at all, but it does mean this, that the church is operating with a real handicap. That there's things that we can't do because the nose isn't here, because the ear isn't here, because we're missing a toe, or because there's a kidney that's missing. Yes, there is function, but it is handicapped function because the body needs all of its parts. Jesus wants you to know, the Lord wants you to know, and he used the Apostle Paul to communicate this, that once you begin a relationship with Jesus, you're not an island unto yourself, that you become part of something that's bigger than you. You become part of a body. And it is a mutual relationship. It's not just one where you're thinking about yourself, but you're thinking about that which you are connected to. And my church family, this church family, needs you as a part of it because you're a part of the body. How many of our parts are important? Every single one of them. But this whole experience of being connected with a church, being part of the family of God, it's mutual. Not only because my church family needs me as a part of the body, but he communicates, Paul does here also, that I need my church family because I am a part of the body. My church family needs me, and you need your church family. As he continues the metaphor in verse 19, he says, if all of these parts of the body were the same part, where would the body be? What would happen if we were all hearts? We could do a whole lot of pumping, but we couldn't see anything. If we were all eyes, we could see an awful lot, but we couldn't hear one blessed word. If we were all the same part, that's a problem. There are so many things that couldn't be done, so many things that should be done that absolutely would be impossible. We would be incomplete. There would be a lot of needs that absolutely could not be taken care of. Consequently, the thought continues in verse 21 where he says, you know what, the eye can't speak to the hand and say, you know what, I don't need you. Or the head can't say to the feet, you know what, I don't need you. Why is that? Because what he describes at the end of verse 22, that each of these parts is what? Indispensable. The English word conveys that, but even the Greek word that Paul uses conveys exactly the same thought, that the individual parts of the body, the individual parts of this body are indispensable, that we do not fully function, and that we are not whole unless we have all of our parts connected and meaningfully connected. And what he's seeking to communicate, and I believe he's doing so with capital letters, with bold print, with italics and underlining and highlighting, he's trying to communicate this thought. You are a part of the body, and the body needs you, but you need to realize this. You need the rest of the body. That you can't, this is not a game, this is not an episode of Lone Ranger, that I absolutely need you, but you need me. You need the person that's beside you. You need collectively this body. And he's communicating the relationship that we have with the church should be, and absolutely is, a two-way street. It is a mutual relationship. You know, it's, we think back to what it was like July 4th of 2020, and it was very much a different world, a lot of different circumstances we were experiencing back then. And I remember what it was like when we were first able to have our first, or resume some in-person services. And so it was the middle of March that we stopped, and mid-May we started by having some outdoor services in May. And I can't tell you how many times, even on that first day, I heard two things over and over again. I am so glad to be back together with my church family because I miss them so much. And then I heard this. I didn't realize fully how much I needed my church family. And having gone on pause, and us, everyone seemingly operating in their individual silo, and you going into your home and shutting the door and coming out only with a mask on and in a biohazard suit, as we were separated for so long, many came to discover how much it was fully that they needed their church family. Listen, we absolutely need each other. I need you, you need me. But unfortunately, for all those who discovered how much they needed the church during this time, there are others who during that same time drifted, who checked out. Some have done so under the pretense or the misguided thought that somehow, some way, that connecting virtually is the same, and that you can dot all the I's and cross all the T's, and you can get everything that you need by virtue of an internet connection. And I'm telling you, as beneficial and as helpful as it is, that especially during the initial weeks, when the only thing that we had was that, I'm glad that we did, but I'm telling you, that is no substitute for us being together. And if you're watching today, I'm glad that you're watching. I'm glad that you're spending part of your day with us. This is absolutely better than nothing, but I'm going to tell you this. It is absolutely no substitute for actual, meaningful, true, literal interaction with other people. It's not the same. And a virtual experience over time simply does not cut it. We need each other, and we need to be with each other. For one thing, we have been called to be followers of Jesus in community. The New Testament picture of what being a follower of Jesus looks like is one who is part of a church and a church family. It's one where we are actually worshiping together, because that's how the people of God operate. They worship together. They study together. They fellowship together. They serve together. They share together. They operate. They do life. They do ministry. They do missions. They do everything in life together. Because, among other things, there is more that we can do together than we can do apart. I need you to help keep me in check. You need me to help keep you in check. I need your encouragement. You need the encouragement and the comfort and the consolation of others. What I'm saying to you over and over in 1,000 different ways is you and I need each other. I need you to help me keep me in check. I need other people to be used by God to speak into my life truth, encouragement in times of despair, and comfort in times of grief. Let me ask you if something like this has happened to you before. And maybe it was with an ice storm or a transformer outage or something, but the power has gone out at your house. And so it's nighttime and you're sitting in the den and you've got a flashlight or you've got your cell phone turned on, and you're just waiting, hoping that Duke Power is going to be really quick in restoring the power. But as the moments turn into some hours, it's getting a little more frustrating. And so you're sitting there with your family just hoping that the power is going to soon be restored, but you realize, I need to go to the bathroom. Or I need to go to get something out of the bedroom. Or I need to go to the kitchen. I need to do something. And so you take your flashlight with you, and so you walk into the next room. And as you walk into the bathroom, as you walk into the bedroom, as you walk into the kitchen, what do you instinctively do? You reach for the switch, and what happens? Nothing. And it's those occasions like that, and it's happened to me, I'm sure it's happened to you, where you think this: I didn't realize how much I needed it. I didn't realize how much I depended on it until when? Until I didn't have it. Until I didn't have it. Maybe today is your first day to reconnect or connect with people in person. Maybe you're still at home and you are watching online and you're hearing this and realizing it is possible that, or likely over this time, you've kind of inched further and further and further away, and you've gotten disconnected from the body. And it may be that you have thought, that's okay. I can do this. Life seems to be okay. And then all of a sudden, the doctor says, something showed up on that chest x-ray. The doctor says to you, as you hear tears in your eyes, as your spouse is laying in the bed, unconscious, we've done all that we can. There's a knock at the door, and it's a police officer who begins the conversation by saying, I am so sorry to have to tell you. The spouse looks at you out of the blue and says, I need to be honest with you, and I don't know that I love you anymore. Or the kids say something that absolutely shatters your heart. At that point, you realize, I could sure use some help. I sure need some people with skin on them. I'd sure love somebody to talk through this. I'd love for someone to be able to walk through this valley with. I'd love to be able to talk with somebody who's already been there and got the t-shirt. What I'm saying is this. Too many times as people, we don't realize what is valuable to us until we don't have it. And when you and I, as followers of Jesus, are prone to wander, and over time we get disconnected from the church thinking, I can do this without them. I'm telling you, circumstances will come in life when you realize the truth is this: we need each other. I'm telling you, there are needs that you can get met here that nowhere else in life can you find this. There is no substitute. There are counterfeits, but I'm telling you, there is nothing that can afford for us what we can experience. And why is that? This is part of God's plan. Notice repeatedly how he describes how God put all of this together. This was the and is the plan of God. That as his follower, I'm not doing this in isolation. I'm doing this as part of a team that needs me, a family that needs my unique giftedness, my quirky ways, my particular gifts. But you know what? For all the things that I can do, there's a whole stack of things that I can't do, and a whole lot of needs that I have that it was God's plan all along to use you as part of the process of meeting. What I'm trying to say to you today is this: the experience of being in relationship with a church is a mutual relationship. I believe sincerely in the past 20 to 25 years, there has been a shift in the mindset of, and I don't blame people for this. In many ways, I blame churches for how it is many times that we've operated. But what has occurred, I believe, is that a consumer mentality has permeated how churches operate, so that many people, they're thinking about a church only with what can I get? What does it provide me? What do I get to take away with? What freebies are they offering? What is it for my kid? What is it for my teenager? What is it for... And they're thinking about it only concerning themselves. But let me just tell you, that's a thought that is foreign from the pages of Scripture. You're an individual part of a body that needs you, and you need them. And if we keep that in mind, we will not be those who are prone to wander. Will you bow your heads with me? We've been talking about this experience of being part of a family of God. And the only way that happens is by you having your own personal relationship with Jesus. I can't give that to you. I can't let you in on mine. It's personal. It's unique. And let me just ask you out of the gate, do you have that? If you're watching this online, let me ask you, do you have that? If the answer is no, we want to help you. Or if the answer is I'm not sure, we want to help answer those questions. Because God doesn't want you to operate in the dark. He doesn't want you to operate with a question mark. He wants you to know and experience this amazing difference He makes in the life of a person, the life of a family, and He makes you part of something bigger than yourself. He makes you part of a family. If that's you, we do want to help you. If you want during this time of decision, we can pray with you. But I'd love afterwards, find me, find Jamie. I'll be at the back. Jamie will probably be down here at the front. Find us and say, listen, let me just talk to you for a little bit. And I promise you, we would love to do that. If you're watching, we would love, if you will reach out to us, I promise you, we'd make any time necessary to help you with this. But if you've already crossed that line and you say, you know what, Michael, I know I'm a part of the family. I'm a follower of Jesus. Have you been operating as though that's really the case? That you're really and meaningfully connected? I'm just going to shoot straight with you. Some of you are here on a Sunday morning for worship service, and that's good. But that's the only connection that you've got. That's it. And absolutely, that's better than nothing. But that's not the meaningful connection that God wants you to have. And I'm going to be honest with you. You're not going to experience the full blessing that is afforded by being part of the family when all you do is show up and sit on a pew on Sunday mornings and walk away and leave. Maybe God is helping you to see, you know what? I need to get more meaningfully connected. There are small groups, there are service opportunities, there's ways in which I can join actively the other parts of the family. You know what? Because they need me, and I need them. Maybe what you need to do this morning is just say, God, I've been operating like I could do all this by myself, and you've helped me to see that I can't. Maybe others just need to say, Lord, I just want to thank you for my church family. I have discovered fully how much it means to me and what a blessing it is, and I just want to say thank you. Maybe there's a burden that you came into this place that you want us to help you with. You realize you do need us, and we want to help you. If we can pray with you, we can talk with you. As the Lord is speaking to your heart right now, saying to you what I fully never could, As He's showing you changes that need to be made or decisions that need to be made right now, I just pray for His sake and for your own well-being. Will you just make them? Will you talk to Him? Will you respond to what He's saying to you and to your heart?